Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. This is the video I mentioned that I would do this week. We're going to have a look at all my Dendrobiums, apart from the mounts, which we looked at on Sunday. There's no point in doing them again, although it would be nice if they were all together. I'm going to try and do them in sets, but they don't all lend themselves to being in sets, if you see what I mean. Well, you'll see what I mean as we get going. Now, I'm going to hold the camera by hand, which means I will have to break off to put things away and get more things out. So we will be fading in and out as we go along. So we'll make a start then. Now, the idea is I'm going to get the Dendrobiums out in their sets, and then we will use my bonsai turntable to have a look at them each in turn, which means I can still turn them round and hold the camera by hand. Now, this is a black hair type, and it's a hybrid with no ID, but somebody suggested what it might be, and it struck a chord, because this did come from Jeff Hand's collection via Marius, and as such it may well be what that person suggested, because I know Jeff Hand's had that particular Dendrobium, and it's Dendrobium formidable. It's a primary cross, I forget what with. I think it's Lowii and something, I've forgotten, but formidable anyway, and it's highly likely to be that, but I've got no real guarantee, so it'll be a bit dodgy naming it that officially, although for internal records, like for here, we can call it that, I suppose. Anyway, recently repotted, taking advantage of the new growths with the new roots coming out. We've got a nice new growth here pushing on. This was the last one that we grew that actually hung out sideways for quite a while, but it got straightened up and wired in place, just to basically hold it there and hold the plant together so that it's more upright and takes up less room. So anyway, nice strong new growth there, and another nice strong growth there, both pushing out roots and into new media, so this should push on well. Whether we get any more blooms, because this blooms quite well for me, you can see all the stumps on the canes where it's bloomed before. Whether it'll bloom again on these older canes, I don't know. We may have to wait for the new canes to mature, but nonetheless it's doing fine. It grows well. Out of the many black hair types I've had, these are the two that are left basically, and then whoops, oh, that cane's rotted off. Do you know, I've been meaning to cut that cane off for ages. Well, that saved me the job, hasn't it? I think I knocked that when I was repotting it, so I think it got damaged and it's just given up. Anyway, this is Infundibulum. Again, this one blooms quite well for me, and is currently doing it. So these black hair types, these giant ones like this with the large canes and everything, there's a whole set of these that have very, very similar blooms. They're large, they're white, they're papery looking, and they all have gold, yellow, or those types of colours in the centre. So this one again has bloomed quite well for me. We had an accident and broke this cane off, so it lost its growing tip. So I don't know what it's going to do, because that will have disrupted its normal pattern of maturing a cane, getting a terminal leaf, and then producing blooms at the top of that cane. Well, I don't know what this one's going to do, because it got interrupted, but it's showing no signs of blooming at the moment anyway, whereas this one is. Again, new growth, recently repotted, taking advantage of the new growth, and lots of new roots coming from that new growth, so we'll have a nice pot full of roots to go with those. So that's the black hair type. These are in the main warm growers. They don't like getting cold, so these are going to slow right down in the winter, and at that time they will need to be kept quite dry. Not dry enough to sort of shrivel and drop all their leaves, but quite dry. If they are wet and cold, they are liable to have root rot. But but there's time for these to grow on before we get to that stage and produce some reasonable fresh roots which are unlikely to rot. So these two should grow on and be okay. Right, these next two are my two antelope type dendrobiums that I bought. I bought these on a whim. These are warm to hot growers and need light around the same sort of light as Vandas to have any chance of blooming. So the chances of me actually blooming them are relatively slim, but nonetheless it was sort of a bit of a challenge, I suppose you could say. They are both named, and they are, this one is Jarak Spider crossed with Discolor, and apparently Discolor, although it annoys me because it's the American spelling, C-O-L-O-R, apparently that is the official spelling, as opposed to the English version of colour with the O-U-R on the end, so I've spelt that wrong. I mean, you have to be, you know, when you're talking about naming plants, irrespective of the spelling, the correct spelling is the only spelling that's correct, basically. So I'll get that tag redone at some point. Now this has grown an awful lot of roots, which is good because it came inside a cocoa shell. They're difficult to explain, but they're pieces of cocoa shell. The plant is put in the middle with some sort of media, usually cocoa fibre or something, and then they're strapped together so that the plant's self-contained inside this, and then that gradually breaks down and rots, but as it does so, the roots grow through it. So trying to get it off is almost impossible. So what I did when I repotted this was I took pieces of the cocoa shell off, which damaged the roots quite badly, and left pieces on there so that the roots could grow through the gaps and get into the normal media, which is what's happened. So we've now got good roots on the plant. So I'm quite happy with that. And it's got a little piece sticking out here that keeps trying to grow. It's not being very successful. It is attached, it's not a separate plant, in the opposite direction to the main plant, which is, you know, I mean, I've grown this cane here, and now I'm growing this cane, so it's growing okay, but as I said, whether I can ever get it to bloom or not remains to be seen. So that's that one. And then the other little one we've got here, if it will come out of its black pot. This one is, this is Discolor, again spelt wrong, and its variety Broomfieldii. And one of my friends at the Bournemouth Orchid Society is called Broomfield. That just sort of, you know, I thought, well, I'll have that then. But it was on a whim. Much smaller plant here. Whether that means it's a smaller growing plant or whether it's a younger plant, difficult to say. But I mean, I've grown this cane and now I'm growing this cane under here, which is still in active growth. And we've produced some roots. Can't see them all because the stake is taped on, but it's got some reasonable roots, so it's growing okay. It's in, both of these are in the brightest light I've got, right up against the glass up the door end, but again they're not going to be happy as we go through the winter. They will probably just slow right down if not stop. So yeah, very, very bright light, warm to hot growers. Well, these two are anyway, and I would suggest most antelope types come into the warm category, and I would also imagine that most of them require bright light, but I've only looked up these. I haven't looked up any others, so you'd have to do your own homework there. So that's those. Okay, I know I said they're going to be in sets, but this next set are all odd ones. Their only collaboration is the fact they live on the same shelf. And I'm doing that side of the grow room first and get that lot out of the way before we start over on the other side where there's a large shelf with a lot on. Right, so this is Dendrobium lindleyi. It's not growing, but it's also not dying. There's canes here with leaves on that have survived fine, and there are some roots in the pot, but it's far from happy. It's not happy at all. Now, because this is a winter rester, this will get dried off for the winter, and as such I think it should survive the winter okay. Next year it's going to go back on a mount. That might mean separating pieces off to get rid of the centre of the plant that's died back, because they tend to grow away from a central point. So we may separate this off into a few pieces with some roots on, but it's going to go back on a mount. Hasn't bloomed this year, hasn't really done anything, just sitting there doing nothing basically. I think this is the only new growth, this one. But if I can get these pieces with some roots on a mount, I think they should start growing again. So that's that one. And then this one, as I said, they're not related, they don't go together, they just happen to be on the same shelf. This is my Victoria Regina that has been sitting doing nothing for some time, although it did actually bloom. I missed the buds because they were tucked under that clip. That clip's just to hold it upright. And I've just noticed that. And that was not there last time this was watered. So it's coming into bloom again. We're going to have a little bit there and a little bit there. The cane that's green has now finished growing, I believe, so it's not going to do any more. And the worrying thing is it's been sitting around doing nothing as far as growing is concerned for a long time, and it's just got its first growth from the base. So providing that survives, this tends to be a cooler grower, so it's not going to be uncomfortable in the winter. This may well be its last flurry of blooms for a while, but you know, it surprises me, it just does that. So that's that one. And then the other odd one, because it perches on the end of this side, is my Hercoglossum, complete with tray that's falling on the floor. Right, this is very unhappy, but nonetheless we still have a few kikis on the go. We've got one here that's grown quite a bit but has yet to grow decent roots, so I'm leaving it on there. This one has got some roots that are viable and some top growth, but it looks like it's finished growing. So if I take that kiki off, it's going to have to grow from the base or it won't be of any use. So that's what's going on with the older canes. This has had a hell of a haircut recently and taken all the old straggly canes off. These are the few growths that are ongoing, and they are actually still growing. So this is growing. It looks awful, but we've suddenly got a growth from the base. Doesn't look very strong, but it's there, and I think this came off a mount again, so it probably got the best bits taken off and potted. Let me explain. When I moved around here, things started going very wrong with the mounts. They'd started to go wrong before because I was spending too much time sorting out my mum's estate and sorting myself out to actually move house. There's a lot of effort and work went in, and the plants got neglected, quite honestly, and the mounts suffered the worst. But they're coming on now. Most of them got potted. We do have some active roots. There's a lot of dead roots in there as well, but it's not dead, and it is showing some signs of trying hard. In fact, this is a good exercise for me as well. There's another new growth over here. So there's two. So it is trying. I wouldn't say it's trying hard, but it's trying. And that's what it needs. It needs some new green growth. The canes on this one are unusual. Hercoglossum grows through the winter, doesn't rest. Doesn't grow fast through the winter, but the canes should be produced in the spring, not in the autumn. They grow through the summer season, they carry on through the winter, they carry on growing through the following season, and often through the following winter into the next year, before they eventually become deciduous. And they can start flowering quite early on in their life. And they can bloom many times on the same canes, even after all of the leaves have fallen off. So Once was, I would say, a specimen plant. It's far from it now, but at least it's alive. Okay, this next group are the rescues actually. These are the ones, they all live on that shelf up there. So they're rescues in some shape or form. This was kikis taken off the mother plant. This is kuniko, beautiful blooms, and it has always been a profuse bloomer, and then it suddenly decided to keel over. So I managed to get some kikis off, which are just starting to grow. We've got a sign of growth here. There's another one down there at the base, and there's another one there near the base. So it's just deciding to grow. It's got a couple of roots down in the bottom of the pot, so it's not rootless. There are some roots in the pot, some of which are active. That cane is still growing, as is that one. So it is in growth. And these are basically kikis off the mother plant. So it's been saved, it should be okay, but it'll be slow progress to get it back to the plant it once was. So that's that one. I'll just take these as I go. This one is not happy. This again is kikis off the mother plant that was mounted and failed miserably and died. Tortilli, I did actually manage to get it to bloom. This cane has in fact got a kiki on it, and it also has a new growth. Most of these are going to get mounted if they grow, so next year these will be on mounts, and the mounts in here are going to take off. There's going to be quite a few, because the new ones that I've planted on mounts are taking off really well. So with the current environment being the only environment they know, they're kikis, and putting in some fresh moss on clean mounts, they are actively growing well. Whereas the old ones that I brought from the other house really didn't, they just went down. So we're starting again with our mounted orchids, and we've got quite a few candidates. That will be one, Tortilli, Resta, that one. Dry winter thingy and all that. This one is a strange one. I think these kikis might have come from Lynn. It's Signatum species again. It's a bit of a kiki machine because I got kikis and the kikis are now growing kikis. Some blooms might be a good idea perhaps, but we've even got a kiki there with no leaves. It's still got roots though. This is a nice kiki here. And these have got roots. So again, this will get mounted, and it will probably get mounted at the bottom of a long tall mount, so that these kikis can be left on the plant, but they will still touch the mount and grow and form new plants. So anyway, that one's okay. That's not a problem. That's going to be with us. That's that one. This one, however, is a very sad case because it's got no sign of life, but it hasn't shriveled. It's got no roots of any, worth mentioning. It's a single kiki that's dropped its leaves. It is naturally a deciduous orchid, but nonetheless this is not growing. I'm just keeping it quite dry at the moment in the hope that it will produce a new growth. That's what's left of my awarded plant, and it's pretty sad, but this is how things go. Don't get everything your own way with orchids, so that's what's left, and it might be the end of it. And then the last one in this little group is this one, and these are Dendrobium hercoglossum kikis. These were the kikis that got taken off at the point the plant got taken off and put in a pot. These have grown on quite well this year. They're still growing, as one would expect with hercoglossum. They're still continuing to grow. No sign of life from the base yet, but nonetheless they are healthy canes growing as kikis in a pot. So they'll be fine. So those are the rescues. As I said, they all live together so that I can give them the similar treatment because they're all together when I water. So that's that group. Now this one's in a set on its own as well. Although this would go, if it had to go with something, it would go with the Dendrobium kuniko and possibly with Victoria Regina. I won't say they're related, but certainly kuniko and hibiki, I think one of the elements of those two hybrids is the same. I'm not sure, don't quote me on it. Anyway, this is the best hibiki I've ever had. It's currently in bloom, and these blooms, they bear closer looking because it's relatively unusual to get purple and orange together as a pair on a single bloom. And you'd think it wouldn't work, but it just does. It's, you know, this cane's doing all sorts of weird things. It's got a kiki here with no roots, it's got a kiki with roots, and it's in bloom. And it looks like it's going to lose its leaves. It's doing everything. But this plant does grow kikis, as you can see. There's three kikis coming out of the same place there. 1, 2, 3, all coming out of that cane. So this one's got quite a few kikis. Some of these kikis, if I remember, I won't be doing it tomorrow, but the next meeting, Orchid Society meeting, is tomorrow, when I'll be picking Hannah up and she's coming with me to the meeting. Then we'll come back here for the rest of the weekend. That's the plan. And what she doesn't know is that while we're having our committee meeting, she's got a form to fill in because she's going to become a member. I'm getting fed up with having to explain her presence when she's not a member, so I shall just pay for her to join and she can be a member. And then also, if we go to the NEC next year, we haven't got any hassles, because last year, this year, you know, a while ago, she had to become an honorary member to be able to join in as part of the society. So I think I'll get her to fill the form in and she can join tomorrow. Filling the form in just is that, you know, you agree to your email being used. You know, there's an actual legal requirement to filling in that form, plus, you know, email address and everything to go on the list and stuff. So we'll get that done tomorrow, I think. And so the following meeting is actually our show. In October, it's our autumn show, at which point quite a few of my kikis that are lying around are coming off and going. I know the home they're going to go to, but I'm not going to say who it is because she watches the videos. Now I've said she as well. Anyway, I'm passing on some kikis, but the kikis off of this one may not go to that home because I think she's already got this one. You don't want two, do you? Anyway, it grows well and has been doing for a while. It just keeps on growing, and it's finally decided to bloom. It hasn't bloomed for a long time. I'm not even sure it was in bloom when I got it. I think I bought it because it looked like the best plant, and it certainly turned out to be. Its only downside is it's growing outwards from the centre, which is what a lot of plants do that, but it's left nothing in the middle. It's got no upright canes anywhere, and I don't think these would bend up and get staked and stay there. They'd probably snap. So this is the shape it is, basically, but at least it's come into bloom. This is doing what it should be. This is an old leafless cane, and that's come into bloom. This is strange, but you know, we take what we get. It's going to be quite some time before I have lots of old leafless canes. Prior to these massive canes with all their leaves becoming old leafless canes, we need to get some new growth going, because there isn't any. I know it looks like a lovely, strong, healthy plant. There's no new growths, only kikis. There's no new growths from the centre of the plant. I don't know. Yeah, there are a couple. Yeah, but they're not that new, are they? Anyway, I would say doing well. And it's an oddity. Doesn't go with anything else really, and it's on a shelf on its own. And it's the next to last shelf, so that's that one. This next bit could take some time, because on that shelf in amongst that sea of green are quite a lot of Dendrobiums, and some of them do go into sets. So, and obviously I've got to take a lot of plants off and get them out of the way before I can do that. So that's the next bit, but I'm going to have a coffee in the meantime. Right, this group don't really go together. Well, 3 of them sort of loosely go together, I suppose, but I'm leaving the Nobiles till last. So if you've made it this far and you're expecting a chat on Nobile type Dendrobiums, they're last. You'll have to wait till the end. Wait, we skip, I suppose. Right, this is my last genuine Latoria type orchid. It's the only one left. It's never bloomed for me. It seems to grow okay and it produces canes with good leaves, but it won't bloom. It never has, despite being a healthy plant. Now I can't lift it out to have a look at the roots, simply because I picked it up a while back and it came out of the pot. So I had to push it back in and poke all the media back in, and I now can't get the clear pot out of the black one without the plant being knocked and damaged, so I won't, basically. Got some scale on this one too. I'm going to have to get that hot box going again. Yeah, look. Little tykes. I think I'll actually, well, I can't spray that one, so I need to go outside and it's chucking it down the rain, but yeah, this one's got it bad. We might have to spray in here then, as long as I don't get it on the floor where Mojo walks. I can get it on my table, that's alright. Anyway, this one grows new canes. When it grows new canes, it grows roots. And the latest cane is, I've forgotten, I think it's this one, I'm not sure. It might be this one. In fact, it could be this one. I was just looking at the position on the base. But it's, in fact, I think it's this one round here. And the reason I think it's this one round here is that the sheath is still green. So yes, this is the latest cane, and it has a green sheath with a shadow. Others have done that and still not bloomed. I'm not sure why this one won't bloom. It's healthy enough, relatively speaking. It's Aussie Sweetness crossed with Tapiniense, and as like I said, it's a non-bloomer, so patiently waiting. It's a bit of a nuisance because it's very top heavy, and canes like this that stick out sideways, just other orchids knock it as you move things around and pick things up, and this one just falls over at a moment's notice. In fact, this is the one that fell over and took several other plants with it, including the one with the blooms, with the red blooms that broke the spike. This is the guilty party. It's very top heavy. These tops of these canes are very heavy. I wouldn't mind so much if it actually bloomed. Well, what I can do with that is I can just spray that with the rubbing alcohol. Just to get rid of those scale that I can actually see. Right, so this is Dendrobium berryoda. Technically it's not mine, it's Hannah's. So I should have got, oh, and leave it in there. Grows kikis, that's what this one does. Winter rester, kikis growing on. That's all I can say about that one. This is, they are one and the same. This is Spectabile. Now this is a warm grower, so it's never going to do brilliantly here, but this piece, I've got 2 pieces here, this piece has some new growths coming at the base. If they grow strong and grow up to full size and produce roots, then that plant will be okay. Otherwise, you know, the previous new growths are tiny, it just doesn't want to grow, so not doing very well. I think Spectabile it's a warm grower, and I think it often grows on rocks rather than as an epiphyte. And then this is the other piece. Again, the new growths aren't very strong. This piece has actually bloomed for me once. It was quite a while ago though. But yeah, I mean this piece has at least got some roots, but they're not pushing down into the pot very well. So it's not doing well. So that little group go together, And then last but not least, I'll do it now because I can pick it up from here before we get onto the Nobiles, is this one on the floor. Ugh. Now this is the endearingly known as the bamboo bush, which has mealybugs. It had them when I got it, and I just keep at them. I've sprayed it a couple of times and they came back, so I just keep my eye out, and whenever I see, you know, little blobs of white, I just rub them out. You know, I'll just keep working at it, but I think I'll have to give it another spray. It's a tatty looking plant, and it is a plant that looks like this. As I said, it grows like a bamboo bush, and it's a strange dendrobium because the canes actually branch, and they're not kikis. You can see one there. They're genuine branched canes, and they can branch at any point, and it ends up looking quite straggly, quite honestly, and you know, the branches here. So it's growing on okay, you know, it's doing okay, and so I've just seen a big mealybug, a dead big mealybug. Well, it is now anyway. It hasn't been repotted since I got it. I'll wait till the spring now. The pot's too big for it, but this is Dendrobium hancockii. It does rest in the winter, so you know it's coming to that time in the not too distant future, and then we'll pick it up again in the spring. I had one of these before, and it was so big it had to go on the floor. There was nowhere else for it to go. It was too tall and too straggly, and I can't remember whether I actually chucked it out or whether it went to somebody else, but I got very fed up with kicking it and falling over it and everything else that went with it being on the floor. This one just fits on that lowest shelf there, it does actually hang out the top a bit, but yeah, if it wasn't for the blooms I wouldn't bother with it, but it was also a gift, and it was a gift from somebody who's definitely not going to be with us much longer, now in hospital, and the hospital have said there's nothing they can do for him, so his days are numbered. His days might even be up by now since I last heard that, I don't know, but anyway, so you know, I will keep this as a memento, by hook or by crook. I will keep it going, but it definitely needs a smaller pot, and it needs supporting better than it is now. But when I say branching canes, take a look at this cane here. Yeah, these are branches, they're not kikis. There's no sign of roots or anything, and it's branched here, 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 and again up here. So on mature canes they can branch out quite a bit, and that's how it grows. The blooms are absolutely gorgeous and a lovely fragrance, but it's a fragrance that doesn't fill a room. It's one of those you have to get quite close. So you know, if you want somebody else to sample the fragrance, you have to tell them it's there so that they can get in close enough, otherwise they won't, doesn't fill a room, or it hasn't for me, let's put it that way. But yeah, it's been growing on. I'm sure it would grow better without the mealybugs, but they can be a bit stubborn sometimes, and the trouble is, I don't know what sprays have been used on this plant in the past. We might even have some immunity going on here, I don't know. Anyway, I mean, it likes reasonable light. As I say, it's a typical dendrobium that needs a winter rest. Does most of its growing in the spring. But since I got it, it hasn't pushed up any growth from the base. Some new branches have formed, like this one here. This is new, as is that one. So it's grown some new branches, it's bushed up a bit, but no growth from the base as such. It will need to grow some from the base, because gradually it will become more and more deciduous, and it'll look even more of a mess. It's just a straggly plant, that's how it grows. I've got a feeling I saw a picture of one of these growing in situ, and it arches. It's sort of grows off of a fork in a tree or something and arches over. So, you know, it does actually hang semi-pendulous, not totally pendulous, semi-arching over. Whether I can get it to grow like that, I don't know. It would grow like that if I mounted it, but that would be rather a large, clumsy mount. A bit over the top for a mount in this place. So that's that little group. And this is a set of one. There was a time when I had quite a few of these, but this is a Phalaenopsis type Dendrobium, and they tend to be warmer growers, and most of mine failed round the other place. They didn't even get to come round here. They just didn't like the temperatures in the winters. Plus, they didn't get a lot of help from me because I tended to keep them a little bit too wet in the winter and the roots rotted. So that's how I lost most of them. This one came from Jeff Hans, again via Marius. And it is my only Phalaenopsis type and will probably remain so because of their need for warmer temps. So although this is growing nice new growths, I don't know what it's going to do come winter time. It does have a spike on it at the moment. It won't be a very good one, and quite honestly, for the size of the plant, the blooms are not that spectacular. But it's, when I got this, it was labelled as something that was spectacular, and it turned out not to be. And what it is not that spectacular. But yeah, it's grown some new canes. New cane here, another one here, massive roots. It could do, in fact I think it's on my list to be repotted. It needs doing now. It needs repotting now. Got another new growth coming here, and you've got all this round here wasted. It's going to come out, yes. These are old tired roots in the pot, and we've got a nice set of new ones coming at the moment. It will be good to get them in some new media, so that needs doing. I will get on to that next week. Not a lot of this week left now. So that is on my list to be repotted. Now would be a very good time to do it. Get it chance to settle those roots in before it gets too cold and it slows right up, and that'll settle it in for the winter when it will be kept quite dry. So the media for this needs to be light and airy, no moss, and it will probably be mainly larger bark. And hopefully Lynn will remember the small bark at the meeting tomorrow. If not, I'll drive round to her house because it's about 5 minutes across the road. So I should come home with the small bark tomorrow, ready for next week. This will be a mix of medium and small bark, and not too much small. So yeah, I like this to one extent because of the purple veining that it has on the leaves. It does have these purple veins on the leaves, which is quite nice. Although they do disappear eventually. And Phalaenopsis types are what I call semi-deciduous. They should hold their leaves for a few years and then they drop them. Tend to bloom out of the top end. First spike is often directly out of the top of the plant. Subsequent spikes can come from lower leaf joints. A really strong, healthy one in really good conditions can put out 3 or 4 spikes off the same cane at the same time. But I can't see me ever achieving that because I haven't got the temperatures. So that's the only one in that set. Okay, Dendrobium Nobile time then. I've got 3 different ones, 4 pots. We start off with this one. This one had canes twice as long at one point. They were cut down because the plant would not stand up. It was just unmanageable. It grows kikis. Now this one at the moment, this is what I call the mother plant, does actually have a new growth that's still growing from the base. It looks like it has only 1 kiki showing at the moment, but this plant, it's got no ID. It has some of the larger nobile blooms that I've ever seen, which is why I keep it going. But it is a bit of a kiki machine. As I said, this is what's left of the mother plant because I hacked it. Lots of the kikis went to other people and we put that to one side. Some of the kikis I potted up separately in this pot. These kikis have produced kikis that have gone to somebody else. There is now 1 new growth coming from the base, just the one. And it's probably, if I look carefully, it's probably still, yeah, there's another one coming here. It just, and here, it just keeps growing kikis. It's a nuisance. It does bloom every now and again, but you know, it seems, there's another nub in there. I don't say they're kikis until they are. If you, I mean, that one is definitely, but you know, some of these could be bloom spikes. But yeah, it grows okay. These kikis were put in quite heavy on the moss, so that will need repotting in the spring to get it in some sensible media. But although these are kikis, they're mature enough now to be rested. So if I keep them in damp moss all through the winter, when they probably won't be growing at all, the roots will rot. So that's going to have to be rested because of the media it's in. And then this one, I don't know whether I can actually get this one out. Just about, because this is heavy. Right, so yet again another Nobile type. This is Sweet Pinky Momoko. Guess what it's doing? It's at it. Now, some of these kikis will actually go to my friend at Wessex, because this will be one she definitely hasn't got. And it's well worth having. The blooms are enormous and good bold colours as well. Good sort of magenta, some deep purple, very, very attractive and massive. The blooms are absolutely massive. Unfortunately, the plant does grow quite tall. It does that. I doubt if there's any sign of buds anywhere. No, I don't know. Could be. Maybe. But at the moment, it's quite happy doing kikis. I used to worry about Dendrobium nobilis growing kikis, thinking there's something culturally wrong. And it's possible there actually is. But as long as they bloom as well, I don't mind too much. And it means you can, you know, you can spread the orchid around to others. It's a, you know, if it's going to grow new plants, then they can go to somebody else. Or if you get a plant that's getting really tatty and old and straggly, you can just start a new one. You know. Anyway, what's going on at the base then? We've got a couple of new growths at the base here. A couple coming out here with some new roots. It's got roots anyway, but some new roots would be useful. I'd have thought a few more new growths than that would have been better, but nonetheless. This is a relatively new growth, but it's matured now. So that's that one. It is named, as I said, Sweet Pinky Momoko. Not long been repotted, and it's happily growing kikis. These kikis are good because they've got roots and open leaves. If those were taken off and potted, they would grow on quickly and, you know, get into mature canes at a reasonable speed, because they've got growing roots with tips that are not too long. They're not going to get damaged. So that's that one. Drop that one back in there carefully. And then the last one over here is the one I've had this plant since about, I think, about 2014, something like that, maybe 2015. And this is Dendrobium prima donna. Let's get it out of its black pot. So this plant has had many guises. It's gone to other people. Others have had pieces of it at times. At one point it was a specimen plant and got best in show at one of the Orchid Society shows. It was a massive plant, absolutely covered in blooms, absolutely stunning. And like an idiot, I didn't get a photo of it. There was a photo in the local newspaper and a photo of me proudly holding my cup with the plant under my arm, sort of thing, but I didn't get one myself. So, but nonetheless, it's been split many times and pieces have gone to others. This is the piece I've got left. This has grown on quite nicely this year. This is last year's cane, this is this year's cane over here, still growing, so it's going to get bigger than that. And then there's another one coming out on this side of the plant that's still growing on as well. So this one blooms regularly. You see the bloom stumps up the older canes here, and every now and again the older canes have to come off because they start to drain the plant. But unusual, this one, in as much as this is the size of the new cane. It's not finished growing yet. We haven't got a terminal leaf. It's still growing, and it's only just producing roots. But something's been producing roots, because we have got a pot full of roots. So this hasn't long been repotted. It was done this year, I believe. So it's filled up a pot full of roots. It's quite happy, growing on nicely, and not very easy to get. Well, you can't get hold of this. It would be virtually impossible. The cross was done a long time ago, and I don't think it's ever been repeated. So whatever went into this one, chances are the cross has been improved on since then. But I'm happy with the one I've got. It's a nice yellow with those nice touches of tinges of pink on the tips that come and go to various degrees. Some blues open with hardly any pink at all, and others have got quite large pink tinges, tips you could say, to the petals and sepals. But I like this one. I've had it a very long time, and no reason to think that it's going to fail or do anything unusual apart from just continue. Whether I'll ever get it back to that specimen size, I doubt. Anyway, so that's Nobiles, and a quick flash round. Typical Nobile activity. Not always. Some of them do vary, and some of them will do odd things, especially if you haven't had them long and they're recently mass produced and forced into bloom. They can take a while to settle down, but under normal circumstances these bloom late winter into early spring. They also start new growths around that time, or perhaps a bit later. Grow on strong through the summer season. Through that growing season they don't need bright light, they just need reasonable light and plenty of food and water while they're doing that, you know, growing from nothing to this in one season. And then come autumn time they'll get their terminal leaf on their canes, at which point they don't need any more food, so that can drop right down. Watering drops right down to next to nothing in the winter. And then I always sort of think that once you get past Christmas they need an increase in light, and I mean the best you can do. They can sit on a windowsill that gets full sun, they'll appreciate it, but what they need to go with it is a drop in temperature. January into February they need a drop in temperature and an increase in light. The best you can do on those two variables. Don't worry about watering or feeding during that time. They're still resting until eventually you should see the new nubbins coming, which are your new blooms for late winter, early spring, and then you start the cycle again. Yeah. Flash review of Nobile care. But that bright light in January and February, you can trick them. If you can't do that bright light, then don't give them as much light during the growing season, so that you can do the increase as best you can. Yeah. So, and a lot of the hybrids are going to bloom anyway, whatever you do, as long as you don't kill it, of course. Right. So that's a look at my Dendrobiums and a chat about some of them as we've gone along. I will possibly get more. Well, Lynn keeps giving me kikis, so yes, I'm going to get more. And we will switch back round to mounting more orchids when we get to the spring and it comes to that time of year again, because the newly mounted Dendrobiums seem to be doing much better than anything else on a mount since I got here, since I moved house. So, right, that'll do for this one. Now I've got to go and do all the editing and do the pop-ups and get the pictures of the blooms in and position them and scale them down into the corner like I usually do, which is a bit of a faff, but I quite enjoy doing it. And then I can get this posted later in the day. For those of you interested, there will be an unboxing video on the Gardening Channel. I have a parcel from Carol again, so if you're interested in what's in that box. I know sort of what it is, but anyway, that's over on the other channel, obviously. And what's going to happen now, I don't know. I'm out all day tomorrow, from quite early in the day till later in the day, so I won't be filming tomorrow. I might get time to film the plants on the competition tables at the meeting tomorrow, but I don't normally get time at a meeting. You've got committee stuff to do and that, but I might get time. And then Hannah's down for the weekend, so I don't know what I'll be doing on Sunday. But Sunday this month coincidentally coincides with the 8th. Sunday is the 8th. Well, I can't do a Sunday chat and everything in bloom on the 8th, so I'm not quite sure what's going to happen. But you'll see it as and when it comes up. Chances are the everything in bloom will be on Monday, on the 9th. It happens. That's just the way it goes sometimes. Anyway, I will see you next time. Thanks for dropping by.